welcome into the College Basketball Bracket Science Podcast. I am Brandon Jadich. Got a lot to talk about today. We had the top 16 seeds officially revealed by the Committee of March Madness, so we're going to dive into some of those. Three of those teams have already lost, including Purdue losing today at Ohio State. They were the overall number one seed, and they took a fall, so we're going to talk about what this means a little bit and talk about some of the mistakes that the committee may have made, a couple of flaws in the system we'll maybe dive into. Don't want to get too negative, but just want to prove some of the facts in terms of resume. And we're also going to talk about, of course, some of the results, where this leaves our conference standings, and of course, our Sweet 16 games to watch this week. We got a big week, probably the best weekdays of college basketball we've had all year. So very excited for that. Thanks for tuning in. Give us a like and a subscribe while you're here, whether you're listening on audio or watching on video on YouTube. We really appreciate it, trying to grow this even some more. Give us a follow on Instagram and Twitter also while you're here at Bracket Science with two S's. We post everything on there. We're not going to go around it anymore. Let's dive right into it. The top 16 revealed that came out. As we said, the number one overall seed was Purdue. Following number one seeds were actually unanimous for the first time by the committee of all time, and it was pretty obvious. We all kind of figured it was going to be UConn as the second number one seed, Houston as the third number one seed, and Arizona fourth. Two seeds. First one is North Carolina, then Tennessee, Marquette, then Kansas. Three seeds, Alabama, Baylor, Iowa State, Duke. Four seeds, Auburn, San Diego State, Illinois, Wisconsin. So let's dive in and talk a little bit about what some of these means. I mean, obviously, don't really need to talk about the one seeds. They were fairly obvious. Two seeds, I thought Marquette was going to be the first two seed over North Carolina and even Tennessee. I think North Carolina I actually had as the fourth number two seed. I had Iowa State as a two seed as well over Kansas, had Kansas down to the three line, and Alabama, interesting enough, the first number three seed. That would leave them as the number 9 team in the nation right now. They've been very good, but they're a computer loved number, or a computer loved team by the numbers. But Auburn in the fourth spot, which is going to upset some Auburn fans, as they did beat Alabama, but they got to remember Alabama also beat them earlier in the year. I think Iowa State deserved to be ahead of Kansas. So let's go over their resumes a little bit. And bear in mind, this is prior to Kansas's game yesterday at Oklahoma, but they ended up winning the game, but things aren't going to change as much as you would think. The net, Iowa State. So this was when the committee came out, what it was when it came out. So no games yesterday included. The net, Iowa State is 8th, Kansas is 18th. In Q1, both Iowa State and Kansas are 5-4. In Q2, Iowa State's 3-1, Kansas is 4-1, a little bit better, but Kansas does have one Q3 loss, and Iowa State does not have a loss outside of quadrant 1 or 2. Iowa State in the BPI was 8th, Kansas 18th, matches up with the net. Strength of record, Iowa State 6th, Kansas is 7th. They're higher in all of them, and now head-to-head, Iowa State also beat them. I know it's at Iowa State, so that doesn't mean as much as you might think, but not saying the committee got it wrong. This is when I do my predictions, this is what I look at, but the committee also must have put into the factor that they did beat their quad one wins, as we mentioned, Kansas 5-4. Their 3 of their 5 quad one wins are over UConn, Houston, and Tennessee. It's pretty impressive. And they also beat Baylor in there as well. So they're also a 3 seed. So they beat 4 teams on this list. I understand why they did it now. That I'm kind of glad that they take all these things into consideration instead of just looking at the resume instead. Thought it was interesting. Iowa State's resume seems to be better based on the numbers, but when you determine some of the big wins, it's Kansas as of right now. So that was an interesting one. I thought another interesting one to look at was the Marquette versus North Carolina one. Once again, this was before yesterday, before Marquette just got drilled by UConn, which we'll talk about here in a second. So Marquette was 10th in the net, North Carolina 11th. Both 6-4 in quad one, both 4-1 in quad, both 6-4 in quad one, excuse me. In quad two, both were 4-1. But UNC had one quad 3 loss. Marquette is higher in the BPI. They're 11th, North Carolina 13th. Strength of record, Marquette 4th, North Carolina 10th. Thought it was shocking. Thought it was real, but this is one of those where North Carolina doesn't have those wins other than Duke, that like the Kansas where they're beating the top of the top teams. So I thought this was interesting. I thought Marquette was going to be the one battling battling Arizona for maybe that fourth one spot. If anything, I thought it definitely should have been Arizona and then Marquette, but thought it was interesting. Marquette, the third number two seed, but that they probably would have dropped about there anyways after yesterday's loss because that's got to be a metric killer. Haven't looked at it, but speaking of that, let's get right into it. Marquette at number one, UConn. UConn beat them 81-53. Oh my goodness, just pure domination from UConn. There was a lot of talk going around about I think Tyler Kolek said it that they've had this game circled. This is the game they want at UConn. They want to steal one there. Well, they better go and circle another game for next year because this was just ugly. UConn was just better than them. Dan Hurley just continues to do an outstanding job. 28-point win, domination for the Huskies. Incredible stuff. Now, this was the biggest game of the day on Saturday. It was obviously a top four matchup, but this might not have been the most impactful game because Marquette, I mean, yes, you lost by 28. It might hurt your metrics a little bit. But you lost at the number one team in the nation. I don't think that's going to hurt them too much. I think they're definitely still a two seed right now, especially with Alabama being the first number three seed. Didn't really see that one coming. I actually had them as a four seed, but good for Alabama. I'm in on their offense. Their computer love number, but obviously a lot of losses in quad one, but we'll see how they do come March. Let's move on around the nation. Let's continue talking about some of the results. Number 17, Creighton went into Butler and beat them 79-57. Butler actually, remember, beat Creighton earlier in the year at Creighton. Creighton got their revenge. They're playing much better as of now. They got stuff figured out. This team's starting to look dangerous again. Ashworth has been playing a lot better, and Baylor Sherman's had 6 straight double doubles. Incredible for him. He had 17 and 10 in this game. Let's move on to the Big 12. We mentioned Kansas. Kansas did beat Oklahoma at Oklahoma 67-57. This was a ranked on ranked matchup. Number 6, Kansas, and number 25, Oklahoma. Kevin McCullough was back. Shows how important he is. I think this Oklahoma team they're just not that talented. I feel like they have some pieces there. It's not all the way put together yet, but I mean, obviously big jump from last year. Oklahoma actually led the game at the half, but Kansas just kind of came out and just out talented them in the second half. But a good win, Oklahoma. They're going to be in the tournament, but I like what I'm seeing there from Porter Mosier, but just almost so close to putting all the pieces together. Let's move on. Texas visited number 3 Houston, the third number 1 seed also, and Houston just killed them 82-61. Texas is too talented to be losing by 21. Remember they went into overtime with Houston earlier in the year, and you're like, all right, maybe this team's figuring it out. They're not. They're getting worse. Max Abesmith and Dylan Dessou, you think they'd have more time to mesh, and it just hasn't worked. It's maybe leading to a coaching change, honestly. Rodney Terry, he led him to the Elite Eight last year after the whole Chris Beard debacle, but it's not looking too good for this Texas team. They're very much so on the bubble. And if you're Texas Longhorns and don't make the NCAA tournament, not a lot of good things can happen from that. Let's stay in Texas, where Texas Tech went and visited Iowa State all the way up to Iowa. Number 10 team in the nation, and Iowa State won 82-74. Iowa State, as we mentioned, maybe a little disrespected as a 3 seed instead of a 2 seed, but we'll see how that is going forward. TCU also visited Kansas State in the Big 12, and TCU won the game 75-72 on a Jameer Nelson Jr. buzzer beater, crazy shot. It was a busted possession. TCU came down, had the ball, last shot, saving for it. They called timeout. Jerome Tang came out in a zone, just a great coaching decision. TCU did not get a good shot. It was like a fadeaway contested, just heave, and it went in. Special player, Jameer Nelson Jr. TCU is one of those teams where you draw them as an 8 or 9 seed, maybe even a 7 seed if TCU can be a 10 seed. And you play them, you're like, man, that's not a good draw. TCU's got a lot of talent. Emmanuel Miller is great. Jameer Nelson Jr. has been playing great. That's not a team I would want to face in March, I'll tell you that much. Surprising outcome out of the Big 12. Number 19, BYU visited Oklahoma State, who is the worst team in the Big 12, kind of by a long shot as well. BYU got beat 93-83, no free games in the Big 12. BYU is one of those teams that's a computer lover that just really hasn't panned out. They were number 1 in the net when the first net rankings came out, and everyone's got they weren't very good in the WCC last year. Now they're still ranked. They're doing better than most people imagine, but I don't see this team winning a game. Maybe even I don't see them making it to the Sweet 16. I'll say that much. Let's move on to the SEC. So they're a computer lover. Let's go to a team that the computers don't love, and it's starting to prove them right. South Carolina lost another game. They lost at home to LSU. Yikes. One of those games you just can't lose. 64-63 LSU won over the ranked 11th team in the nation. They will drop maybe even out of the AP poll after getting beat by 40 to Auburn and then losing by 1 at home to LSU, who's a bottom half team of the SEC. There's kind of a reason the computers don't love them. I think they were 45th in the net going into that game. Haven't checked what they're at now. Can't be great. South Carolina's starting to fade a little bit. Team they lost by 42. Auburn hosted number 22 Kentucky. Auburn came in the 13th team in the nation, yet got beat 70-59. They came in as a 10-point favorite at KenPom. Crazy stuff there. Kentucky just came in, dominated the whole game. Good stuff for John Calipari's squad. They're starting to play better defense. Allowed 63 the game before to Ole Miss. Now 59 to Auburn. Kentucky's starting to figure things out. They're starting to roll. We know that the talent they got on offense starting to look a lot better. Final game, the leader in the SEC currently is number 15 Alabama, and they scored 100 points again. They beat Texas A&M at Alabama 100-75. Rough loss for Texas A&M, trying to make an at-large case by while Alabama's offense is just continuing to be one of the best we've ever seen. Incredible stuff. Let's keep going into the ACC. Number 9 Duke visited Florida State. Duke won the game 76-67. Jared McCain, TikTok man, went off 35 points. This is a freshman record at Zook, tied with Zion. Pretty good company to put his name in there. He was talking smack to the Florida State student section all game. He's one of those who has a target on his back. Everyone knows he paints his nails, knows he's famous on TikTok, and every opposing team he goes into is booing him, and he went in and just lit them up. He couldn't miss in the first half. 35 points, incredible stuff there. Let's move on to a team that barely scored more than 35 points the whole game. Virginia beat Wake Forest 49-47. Yikes. That's not a halftime score. That is a final score. Number 21 Virginia 49, Wake Forest 47. Wake Forest can't pick up that quad one win. They almost got it here, and thanks to Virginia shooting 1 for 11 on free throws. Yikes, don't see that often from a Tony Bennett squad. Virginia still gets the win. Virginia still maintains that third place status behind Duke and North Carolina. Speaking of North Carolina, another one of North Carolina's rivals, NC State, went to Clemson and beat them 78-77. Clemson starting to spiral a little bit. They were going on the up. They had a great non-conference, had a rough start to AC play, got hot again, and now they lose a home game to NC State. This is not a very good NC State team, may I imagine. They're somewhat close to the bubble, but not really. Rough loss for Clemson there. This will definitely hurt their seeding. They were probably a 5 or 6 seed, and now, I mean, they were probably a 2 or 3 seed coming into the ACC. Now they're probably down to a 6 seed, I would say. Let's move on into the Big Ten. Number 20 Wisconsin lost again. This one was at Iowa, 88-86. This game ended in overtime. 5 of 6 in a row for Wisconsin. That lone loss coming against that lone win, excuse me, coming against Ohio State. And Ohio State just beat Purdue. That's just college basketball for you this year. Number 14, Illinois, went to Maryland and beat them 85-80, kind of crushing any hopes that Maryland has of an at-large bid. Doesn't look like it's going to happen this year for Jameer Young and Maryland. Good win for Illinois in that one. Michigan State also beat Michigan. Just got to note that, a rivalry game. No shock there. Michigan is horrible, just absolutely horrible. Let's continue to go around the nation, where Utah State went into Colorado State and got drilled 75-55. Colorado State playing a lot better as of late. Good win there. And Yale went to Princeton. Got to mention this game. Princeton beat them 73-62. Yale was undefeated in Ivy League play. Princeton 2 losses. Now this win, Princeton just a game behind Yale and Cornell, who we're going to talk about here in a little bit. Main game we got to talk about happened today. Number 2 Purdue went to Ohio State, got beat 73-69. I was at this game watching it live. Jake Diebler's first game. Chris Holtmann gets fired. You're called in to coach the Ohio State Buckeyes, the world famous Ohio State Buckeyes. And the first game you get is against the team who was just released as the number 1 overall seed in the NCAA tournament. And what do? You beat them. Incredible stuff. Congratulations to Jake Diebler. Let's go over just a little bit of this game and what happened. Jamison Battle, the transfer from Minnesota from Ohio State, sharpshooting lefty, got in foul trouble. He got in foul trouble early, had 0 points, 3 fouls in the first half. Zach Edey also picked up 2 fouls in the first half, limiting his minutes. But it was all Bruce Thornton in the first half for Ohio State. He ended with 22 points. And then the second half, Jamison Battle just got on a heat check, scored 19 points in the second half. Incredible stuff. He went on like an 8-0 run by himself. He had an incredible game. There was just basically those two for Ohio State and limiting Zach Edey down low. They got it down low and they just swarmed him, started swatting at the ball, happened to be picking up a few generous calls and whacking the ball away. And Zach Edey just frustrating him. He had 23 points, 13 rebounds. Purdue, it shouldn't have even been this close. Purdue did not miss from the free throw, and I think they were 16 for 16. It was really good basketball to watch. Court storm, incredible stuff. Congrats to Jake Diebler. Congrats to Ohio State picking up a much needed win. Probably a rough watch for Chris Holtmann, knowing he could have been there, knowing they lost him and they win their first game over the number one seed. Good stuff for Ohio State. Fun game to be at. It was an incredible atmosphere there. Didn't get to watch this game, but I was following it on my phone at the Ohio State game. Number 24 FAU got beat at USF. USF is legit there. Guess what? They're in the top 100 of the net now. They're into 99th. Maybe disrespectful to them. They won the game 90 to 86, by the way. They have a 2-game lead over FAU now. Now they do only have a 1-game lead over Charlotte, but 2 games over FAU, who was supposed to run through this conference. Thought it might be Memphis then, maybe, who would come in after they got in the top 10 this year. No, it's USF. It's been USF the entire time, just about. Good for USF. Amir Abdul-Rahim, we can't say his name enough. He has done an incredible job down there. Good for them. Speaking of Memphis and their horrific downfall, this might have been the one that sealed the deal. They lost at SMU today, 106 to 79. Yikes. What would do the math there? What is that? 27-point loss? Oh my goodness, this Memphis team is spiraling. They're not going to make the tournament unless they win the American Conference tournament. They are in a bad spot right now. SMU though, sneaky good. SMU is loved by the computers. They're currently 43rd at KenPom. Pretty good. They're in the 40s at the net. They got a serious chance to make some noise if they were to maybe steal one from FAU. I think they take them on in a couple days here. We're going to talk about that in our upcoming games to watch, but that could be interesting stuff there. Interesting stuff. Final game we want to talk about was St. John's visiting Seton Hall, where Seton Hall beat them. Seton Hall got beat, excuse me, 68 to 62. Kind of came back at the end there. The game actually wasn't that close, but yeah, good win there. Good win for St. John's and their bubble hopes. This was a bubble game. Both teams needed it desperately bad. Rick Pitino's squad ended up winning the game. So I'm trying to pull up the rankings here. We're going to talk about our new rankings now. As guess what? We have a new number one team. I bet you can guess who that is. Let's take a look right here. It is pulled up. UConn, our new number one team in the nation. Purdue just drops to number two. They are still incredible. Do have Iowa State all the way up to number 5. If you'll take a look at that, Iowa State, I feel, was disrespected by the committee. Now, Kansas, we have them down at 11. I still believe they should be a 3 seed. I'm a Kansas fan, so don't think I'm biased. That's my team, but I don't think Iowa State should be behind us right now. And I did move Kansas ahead of Baylor though after this last win over Oklahoma. Thought that was enough, a road win at Oklahoma, to maybe move them up. I know they have the head-to-head to Baylor, but their resumes are very similar. I was giving the edge a little bit on Baylor on terms of momentum, but Kansas moving up a little bit. A few other notables. We do have Creighton up to 14. Creighton was hovering around our 25 spot. I think this team is back. I think they're going to be a team to beat come March. A lot of people were taking them to the Final Four next year. They might be a popular pick again this year. We have Auburn down to 16 after that loss to Kentucky, and we also moved Kentucky up to 20. We had them almost falling out of our rankings. They're at 20 right now. Utah State down to 23. We did move Michigan State and Florida into our rankings for the first time this year. Michigan State in at 26. They're playing great ball as of late. Florida at 27. I've seen enough from Florida. This team is good. This team has the capabilities of making a little run in March. We have them at 18 and 7. Our 27th ranked team, Wisconsin, down to 28, hovering. That resume is carrying them. Those quad 2 wins are carrying them right now. In terms of momentum, ooh, they might be in the 100s. BYU down to 29 after that loss, and we did move TCU in at 18-7. They're at 30 right now. We also considered New Mexico and Nevada, had to mention them, both teams right there on the bubble. So that is it for our rankings. Let's dive into the upcoming games to watch with some of the early KenPom lines, which we'll talk about. Starting on Monday, we got games on Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday. We got a full slate. Start on Monday with Big Monday. The first game of Big Monday is number 21 Virginia visiting Virginia Tech, rivalry game. Virginia Tech favored by 3 via KenPom, obviously on ESPN for the Big Monday. Virginia Tech -3. Interesting line here. Virginia's been rolling as of late. It is a rivalry game, and Virginia Tech can shoot the 3, which you need to do against Virginia. I think I'll take Virginia Tech to steal one here. At 9 o'clock, number 10 Iowa State visits number 3 Houston. This might be the game of the week. This is going to be an incredible watch. Houston favored by 9 via KenPom. Very, very big number there. This game is on ESPN. It's the second game of that doubleheader on Big Monday. Houston -9. That's too many points. I'm taking Iowa State to cover that 9. I know Houston's great. This is Iowa State's chance to prove something. They beat Houston earlier in the year. Can they do it on the road as well, or keep it close at least? Their counterpart on ESPN2 at 9 o'clock, Kansas State visits Texas. Texas favored by 8 via KenPom. This also feels like a few too many points. Texas has been spiraling a little bit, but I think that's a little too many points to give Jerome Tang's squad. Never know. Texas might be up for a rebound game here. That's kind of one I'd probably stay away from, but too many points if you ask me. I'll take Kansas State. On Tuesday at 6:30 to start off the slate, loaded slate on Tuesday, by the way. Butler visits Villanova in a bubble game. Villanova favored by 6 via KenPom. This game is on FS1. Interesting line here because Villanova has been playing actually great basketball as of late. For those who don't know, they're moving their way back up in terms of maybe making the March Madness this year. Butler just lost that game. I think they're due for a rebound game. I think this is going to be a close game all the way through. I'll take Butler to cover the 6, but I think Villanova wins the game. At 8:30, number 1 UConn, and probably the number 1 in terms of seeding now as well with that Purdue loss. At number 17, Creighton. Matchup of the night. This is going to be a great one. This game's on FS1. UConn favored by 2 via KenPom. I am so tired of betting against UConn. This team is so good. They are so well coached. Creighton's playing great. Marquette was playing great coming in. They'd won 8 in a row coming into UConn, and UConn beat them by 28. I can't not take UConn anymore. I'm taking UConn to cover the 2. At 9 o'clock, another ranked on ranked matchup. Number 12 Baylor visits number 19 BYU. This game's on ESPN. BYU favored by 2. But take an upset here. I think Baylor goes in and beats BYU. It's a tough place to play. Elevation. I just have that feeling about Baylor. Baylor's been playing well. BYU, computer lovers, not great. Not great. Not great to the eye test. At 9 o'clock, Battle of Texas. TCU visits Texas Tech. Texas Tech favored by 4 via KenPom. This game is on ESPN2. Interesting matchup here. Two teams that are kind of underappreciated, if you ask me. Texas Tech's towards the top of the Big 12. I think TCU's got the talent to compete with just about anybody. I'll take TCU to cover the 4. At 9 o'clock, San Diego State visits Utah State. Maybe the 2 powerhouses in the Mountain West as of right now. This game's on CBS Sports Network. San Diego State favored by 1 via KenPom. San Diego State's been playing great ball as of late. Utah State just got blown out by Colorado State. I will take San Diego State to win this game. At 9 o'clock out of the WCC, San Francisco at St. Mary's. This game's on ESPN2. St. Mary's is favored by 8 via KenPom. A lot of points, but St. Mary's, man, when they get hot, they get hot. I think they beat them by more than 8. I think they might kind of blow them out in this one. I'll take St. Mary's to cover that 8 in this game. On Wednesday, let's move on to Wednesday. 7 o'clock, number 9 Duke at Miami. This game's on ESPN. Duke favored by 6 via KenPom. I'll take Duke to cover the 6 in this game. Miami is spiraling right now, unfortunately. I really like this Miami team. I hope they can somehow squeeze into March, but they're struggling right now. They're really struggling bad. They got all the talent in the world on their roster. Duke's been playing well. Miami's, I mean, it's got to come together at some point. If they could squeeze into a first 4 game, that'll be one of those popular first four teams to make a little run just because of Larinaga's history and all the experience they have on that team. But unfortunately, I got to take Duke to cover the 6 in this game. At 7 o'clock, Florida visits number 15 Alabama, favored by 9. This game is on ESPN2. This game is going to be the first to 100 kind of game. I mean, that's about what it is every game with Alabama. Kentucky kind of was trying to go outscore everybody, and it wasn't working. They needed to play a little defense. Alabama is trying to outscore everybody, and it is working. It's pretty incredible to watch. I mean, they're scoring 100 points every single game, it seems. I think that's too many points. I said that about LSU though, when they were like 11 and a half point underdogs and they got beat 107 to 92 or something like that. I think nine's too many points for this Florida team. I'll take Florida to cover the nine, not too confidently. At 9 o'clock on ESPN2, following that Alabama-Florida game, a rivalry game, Ole Miss at Mississippi State. Got to mention this game. This is always a fun rivalry game. Mississippi State favored by 7 via KenPom. Ole Miss won the first matchup in this rivalry. I think Mississippi State steals this one. 7's kind of a lot of points. It might end up being closer to 5.5. I'm guessing. I'm going to take Mississippi State to cover in this game, though. At 10 o'clock, Colorado State at New Mexico, favored by 4. This game's on CBS Sports Network. New Mexico kind of needs to pick up a win badly. They've kind of been on the wrong end of a couple games here. I think they're probably a 9 seed right now, 9 or 10 seed. I think they're going to get the job done in this one though. At the pit, they know they need it against Colorado State. I think they win the game. I think they cover the 4. Talked about this game a little bit earlier. This game is on Thursday. We got pretty good slate on Thursday, but you might have to stay up a little late for it. First, let's talk about it. 7 o'clock. SMU visits number 24 FAU. Expect FAU to drop out of the rankings after this USF loss. FAU is favored by 5. SMU is playing well as of late. I'll take SMU to cover the 5 in this game. SMU is one of those sleeper teams where they might mess around and win the AAC conference tournament. At 11 o'clock, got to give some love. Washington State at number 5, Arizona. Arizona favored by 11. This game's on FS1. Washington State, we've talked endlessly about this team. Love this team. Love Miles Rice. Love Kyle Smith. Doing great things over there. Very, very inspirational stories over there. I'm taking Washington State. Can't help but root for them. Give me them plus 11. On Friday, excuse me, at 7 o'clock, we talked about a couple of these teams out of the Ivy League. Last game we're going to talk about today, completing our Sweet 16. 7 o'clock, Yale at Cornell. Cornell favored by 1. This game's on ESPN Plus, but I encourage everyone to watch this game. This is going to be a fun matchup to watch. Both teams whoever wins this game, it's looking like they're going to win the Ivy League regular season this year. Unless Princeton were to sneak in their game back at both of them, but I think this is the one. Yale coming off a loss. Cornell, they're sneaky good. Cornell is sneaky good. You think of Yale and you're like, yeah, they're a good basketball program. Cornell, they're the same way. They're just as good. It's at Cornell, which makes me nervous, but I gotta take Yale in this one. I think Yale coming off a loss, they're talented. They got some guys, they got some dudes that can score the ball. I'm gonna take Yale to win this game. Fun matchup there. Rooting for both teams. Whoever wins that game will deserve the Ivy League. They've had a great year all year. That's it. Kind of a quick podcast today. That is it. Just wanted to get you some of the information, talk about some of those Sweet 16 games, talk about the top 16 that was revealed, along with just giving some insight on what happened in that Purdue Ohio State game. Buckeyes taking them down. Jake Diebler renaming the arena Jake Diebler Arena. He deserves it. Incredible stuff. Wonder what John Diebler's doing nowadays. He was an absolute bucket for Ohio State back in the day. Missed watching him. That's going to do it. That's going to do it for our podcast. Thanks for everyone for listening. Hopefully you enjoy getting your content here for college basketball. March, just about a month away, a little less than a month away. It's like 30 days away. Very, very excited. We'll obviously start doing more podcasts, more posts on Instagram and Twitter. Go check those out. Bracket Science, 2 S's. Before I lose you, make sure you like, comment, let us know how you feel. We are looking for another podcast host as well, so let us know if you could be interested in that. And that's going to do it. Everyone have a happy week. We'll see you on Saturday morning to discuss some more games, discuss some of the results, some new rankings, and even some new bracketology. See you later. Have a great week.